Salutations, everyone! Welcome back to another Total Warhammer 3 guide. This time, we're going with Immortal Empires, which has just entered its beta phase. This is a guide to the beta version, so things are subject to change. If they ever do a full rework of this faction, which I think they need to, I will update the guide then. So, we're talking about the Vampire Counts. So, the Vampire Counts are a very fun faction. They're probably one of my favorite factions. So, we're going to cover, in order in this video, we're going to cover the faction, how they play, their economy, technology, and then the lords and any starting strategies for each lord. Those will be chaptered below, so you can easily jump to them. So let's jump right into it. So the Vampire Counts, their unique abilities are over here. They can raise the dead, which I will show you. It is a very powerful ability, especially with the rework, allowing them to have a more consistent pool of high-level vampire units. They have Vampiric Corruption, which is a unique type of corruption for them. If you haven't played Total Warhammer 2, obviously you wouldn't be playing this, but it makes a return. And with the increased damage corruption seems to do to armies, it makes the vampire counts that much stronger. And of course, their roster has no ranged units. They have a lot of flying monsters and undead units. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about some of these concepts. First off, we just loaded here as Isabella von Karstein because she and Vlad have probably the most basic vampire experience. So if you click on said army here, you will see that you have lots of units. If you hover over them, they are considered to be undead, so that only when they lose tons of leadership, they will slowly die until they disappear. And once destroyed, they don't run away. So vampire armies don't tend to get any retreats from battle. They tend to all die, or very few of them die. But you'll see down here, you have the ability to raise the dead. So this has gotten a bit of a change from Total Warhammer 2. Now you have a percentage of how often things will spawn in the undead. And these get more as you get more vampiric corruption. And if you fight battles in the area, they will get more and better units. And later on, you can even get their highest level, like Vargulf units. But at the start, you can raise them. They cost a fair amount of money to raise. They cost 300 there. If you were to train them, they cost 300. The advantage is you get them in your army instantly. And you're going to be using this a lot, especially early on, because it allows the vampires to have a very powerful early game and even a pretty strong late game. You can literally summon a vampire lord to the field and instantly raise a full army for them. So the other thing to realize about this faction is their vampiric corruption, while being very useful, has more bonuses than it had before. Now you have a percent chance that if a unit is destroyed in battle, and obviously you win the battle, otherwise the army's gone, there's a chance they will rise again. And this is this is reinforced further through the technologies. This concept of your dead armies not being entirely destroyed. It's worth stacking it because sometimes you'll lose a unit in the battle, and you'll have the same unit, which can severely reduce your recruitment costs. And just to glance at Isabella's tree here, you'll see the Undying Horde blue line upgrade here now has a 15% chance for 15% hit points for destroyed units restored after the battle. So you can stack it pretty high to the point that, honestly, it probably actually needs to be weakened a bit. Another thing to note is even the best of the vampiric infantry, which is largely graveguards here, they're solid. They're good middle tier infantry units, maybe middle to high, depending how you use them. But they're never going to be as strong as, say, a dwarf regiment is, or a high-level empire, or high-level dark, or high elf army. They are good for their purpose, but the big strength of the vampires lies both in their monstrous units, their Vargulfs, their Vargeasts, and other ones, but their biggest strength lies in their lords. So if we are to put these two together, and we look at them, the vampire lords all are very good melee fighters. Even ones that are spellcasters, like this lady. Let's just add her here. Come on. Well, I guess we have to go in here. Even just her, she's a very good fighter. She gets a boost right now from Isabella, but still 60 and 45 for melee attack and then defense is pretty solid. Plus, once they get the hunger ability at level 8, they start healing in combat and they become a lot harder to kill. So you're going to want to use a large amount of vampire heroes and generals. There's a couple other vampire units. You can get banshees, you can get necromancers, and both of those have their points. And I do recommend using them. I mentioned it earlier, but it's important to remind you that vampires do not get any range units. Now, there is a way to get a couple range units. If we were to look at Regiments of Renown, you can get Sylvanian handgunners and crossbowmen. They're not great. I mean, if you get them, they're worth using. You get them by upgrading bloodlines, which we'll cover in a moment. But by and large, vampires are a purely melee faction. They charge right into the enemy, and their units just don't die or get healed until they outlast the enemy. If you've ever played the Tomb Kings, it is a very similar mechanic. I think the vampire counts are better than the Tomb Kings in what they do. They're more melee focused. The Tomb Kings have range units, which, to be honest, does make a difference. Another point that requires going over is the blood kisses mechanic. So vampires gain blood kisses from killing enemy faction leaders in battle. If you vassalize a faction, which is one of the few things the vampires can do that's unusual, or if you assassinate enemies, and you can also get them through random events like quest battles. They are very important to the vampires in general because it allows you to unlock these very powerful bloodlines. Now, it's important to note that every level of a bloodline that you unlock does, in fact, give you a legendary lord who is immortal. So, outside of these bloodline lords and your starting lords and any other legendaries you might get through Confederation or events, you really don't want to use the average vampire count general lord type character because they will die. These ones are much more useful because the vampires rely so heavily on heroes and lords. The last thing you want to do is lose a high level one, whereas having an immortal one is very powerful. So I just going to quickly explain which ones you should probably focus on. And again, this will depend on your play style and how you enjoy doing stuff. I have found the best start is to start with the Necrarch bloodline here because it gives you a plus 25% research rate. And as I will explain when I cover technology, research rate is extraordinarily important for the vampire counts. I would say it's probably their most important thing outside of maybe Raise Dead. You can. It's not worth going forward in this after the first level, not till later in the game. The later benefits, additional winds of magic is useful. 10% upkeep is great late game, but early game, each level costs more. So this would cost 3, next 6, and so on and so forth for each of these categories. So it gets expensive. It's important to realize that just because you upgrade one doesn't mean the cost rises in the other. So my advice is you take the gifts here from this faction, and then you have a choice. I found in my runs so far testing it as Isabella and Vlad that if you start in Sylvania here, it is worth going the Latmian bloodline. I'm probably saying all these names wrong, by the way. And trying to get it to level 2 reasonably quickly because the plus 30 relations with Empire, Kislev, Cathay, and Bretonia will prevent you from getting dogpiled, which is everybody hates vampires, basically. Let's just put it that way. Odd exceptions to the hatred of the vampires is Kislev doesn't seem to care too much, and Cathay seems to really actually like you, which makes them great trading partners. So if you're playing in the Empire, is Vlad or Isabella, or maybe even as the guy in Bretonia, it might be worth getting this to level 2. But outside of that, getting the level 1 of the von Karsteins is a priority. Plus 10 replenishment strength is great. plus it gives you the crossbowman. This is the one where as you go further down, you gain the handgunners as well. And the level 2, 5 control in all provinces, is not to be underestimated because it will allow the vampires to seize land and hold it without having to fully corrupt it. Outside of that, I tend to take the Strigoi next for the ambush success chance. Plus, you get crypt ghouls in your raised dead pools, which is nice. Plus, if you get it to level 2, you get vampiric corruption. The level N, the last one, you get crypt horrors. It's not a priority. The blood dragon over here, I only would take this once you start getting your blood knights up and running. A very, very powerful unit for the vampire counts. But early on, all you're going to get is a bonus to cav units when you don't have it. So this should probably be taken after the Necrarch, the Lamian, and the Von Karstein. It's also worth mentioning the Lamian here. This plus 20% experience gain really helps because you want to level up your lords and heroes. Heroes to 20, the lords you just want to get stronger. Okay, we've jumped forward in time for me to display 2 other concepts that are important. The first one is the use of the Necromancer hero units. So, the Necromancer hero units you get from having a level 2 growth building. You start out with a charnel pit, then you get a lich yard. It's important to note that if you get it to level 3 and you get an ossuary, you get a +1 recruit rank on necromancers. Obviously, if you have 20 of them, you'll start recruiting immortal necromancers, which as you grow is something to keep an eye on. And then over here in the purple tree, you can build a spirit well and a level 3 settlement. I recommend obviously only putting it in a capital settlement so that you can get it to the next level. But if you do, you will get a recruit rank 4. So if you build 5 of them, immortal banshees. Both of these heroes are very important to the vampire count's playstyle. The first thing is the vampire count's tech tree is one of there's no restrictions on researching the technology, unlike some other factions. You don't have to build a building to unlock it. Instead, it's all about just time, and each level as you research it strengthens your units. In fact, one of the key strategies for the vampires is to try and get down the tech tree as fast as you can. Players who played it in Total Warhammer 2 will know that one of the strategies used to be to take your necromancers and just keep spamming steel technology, whether you succeeded or failed. In this case, we failed. But you cannot stack it as in the same necromancer multiple times. However, each necromancer's steel technology does stack. So at the moment, I have 187% research. My default's 120 because I started with the Lamian bloodline at this time. And I haven't gotten any other buildings to increase research or stuff. This is basically almost cutting down the research time of technologies by 2, which means I'm getting through my tech tree super fast. My units are getting stronger. I'm getting all the bonuses. The vampires have quite a few powerful technologies, which we'll go over later. But that's what you want to use Necromancer Heroes for. I recommend trying to get 1 or 2 out early game. 3 would probably be ideal, but you might not have space in your settlements for them. And literally every turn, try and steal technology. Even if they fail, they still get technology. Obviously, try and steal from places where they're more likely to succeed. But you want to level up this steal technology to 10%. So you get a good bonus, level up specialist. And then once you've gotten those 2 done, you can just start leveling it up normally. And because you get XP for completing hero actions, and they're cheap, and you've got a good chance of succeeding, you can get them to level 20 pretty quickly, where they will make a huge difference in your armies. Necromancer heroes are extraordinarily powerful because of their magic and their passive of Master of the Dead. Basically, so long as a necromancer's in your army and there's undead near you, and leadership isn't broken on them, they heal the undead unit by less half of 1% a second. You get several of them in your armies, and all of a sudden your armies start to not die in combat. It's very powerful. Keeping them alive is great. And obviously, if you level up Invocation of Nehek, you can even heal them 0.8 a second. And if you upcast it, you can affect multiple allies in an area. Basically, you want to keep spamming this on your front line or your monster units to keep them alive and fighting. And that's kind of how the vampires win. Their units just don't die. Of course, there's other upgrades. Whenever you cast a spell, everything on the map starts to heal. It's important to note that when you heal vampire units, any dead units in the unit will start individual soldiers in the unit. They have a good chance of being resurrected and coming back to the battle. This is a lot stronger than it sounds because each entity in a unit, we'll call them entities, can attack and do damage. If an entity dies, even though the hit points of the unit might not go down much, they've just lost a % of its attack power. So they do less damage. That's powerful. And then if you've got this Dance Macabre, you can seriously boost the attack of your units because the vampire counts don't have particularly strong attacking or defending units, so anything that can boost it is useful. Plus, you can also summon units to the battlefield, which is helpful. And of course, they've got all the other ones, but those are the big ones. You want to also get these corpse carts because they have benefits as well, reviving and stuff. In fact, if we find the Vlad army here, we have the corpse cart, unholy lodestone. Basically, it gives, again, stacking with the Master of the Dead, passive heal to everything in the area. So if you put that on your necromancers, they're now healing 1.15% of an entity of a unit's health per second. You can get some crazy regeneration on top of casting spells. It's very powerful. Let's talk Banshees. Banshees is probably the most important hero unit, even more than the Necromancers, in my opinion. But that's me. The Banshees are used to gathering blood kisses. Blood kisses you get if you assassinate, of course, a unit or you kill someone in battle. Those are really your two ways of getting it. Early on, though, the odds of you killing faction leaders over and over again, unless you're farming them, is lower. Late game, you'll get a lot of blood kisses, so don't worry about it too much. But you want to start those bloodlines I told you about. The best way to do it is a Banshee. So you either need to get a capital settlement or something to level 3. If you're Vlad or Isabella, it's going to be Castle Drakenhof. Elsewhere, it will take a little bit longer. Or if you're very lucky, you will get an event where you spawn a Banshee. If you do, you're really lucky because it's a great one. The Banshee should be sent out to try and find enemy agents and kill them and assassinate them. It's not a massively high chance of success, but because the Banshee is ethereal and stuff, it's hard for enemies to actually kill them in return. And you just want to be trying to assassinate every hero of your enemy. If you look in armies, you can even assassinate heroes in armies. And just keep doing it. They'll take a lot of wounds. They'll probably get injured a lot. You'll lose them from the battlefield for a few turns. Just keep doing it. It's worth generating the blood kisses and trying to get these bloodlines going as fast as you can. At this point, I've only gotten 2. Some of those were from fighting. The next concept I want to talk about is vassalization. So not every faction in the game can vassalize defeated opponents. The vampires are semi-unique in how they can do this. Especially because they get a blood kiss out of it. So the easiest way to vassalize a faction is to take their last one. Now, there are criteria of what factions you can vassalize. Vampires. Pretty much. So if you play as Vlad or Isabella, you'll start at war with Castle Tempelhof. It's worth vassalizing them for the blood kiss. And because vampire vassals tend to spawn huge armies. They don't tend to be very effective armies, don't get me wrong. But they serve as a very good distraction. Plus, with the plus you don't have to own the full province if your vassal owns it to get your edict effects. So it's quite viable to find them a tiny province, in this case Fort Obersteyr, but I could give them Oakenhammer to keep them alive and keep them spawning armies of skeletal warriors or zombies. Not great, but they prove to be reasonably effective as a vassal. So it's probably worth vassalizing vampires when you can. Okay, let's quick talk units. And because this is a beta, things are subject to change. But let's go over quickly the different types of vampire units. So first off, you've got your default ones, zombies. They're trash unless you play as a specific vampire lord. But they're cheap and they take a long time to kill. They have a huge health pool. If you look up at their thing on the left, they've got 12,000 hit points. Skeletal Warriors have 10,000. So, and Blood Knights have 7,000. Now, it just means they take a little bit longer to die. They won't kill anything, really. The next one you've got is your basic Skeletal Warrior. You're going to have a lot of these in your armies. In Total Warhammer 2, you could get free Skeletal Warrior armies. That strategy is gone. They are still very cheap to use. So you're probably going to have pretty much a secondary army helping your main army filled with Skeletal Warriors or zombies just to add bodies to the battlefield. And of course, bodies to the battlefield is, now that I think of it, it's pretty much the whole vampire count strategy. Okay. Next one is your Skeletal Spearman. Think Skeletal Warrior, but with a spear and a shield. They both have shields. But honestly, Skeletal Spearmen better than Skeletal Warriors, mainly because they have higher melee defense and they counter cav. If you play as, I think it's Kemmler, the vampire count that starts in Bretonia, he is going to want a lot of them to counter cav. And if you're fighting Bretonia, you want these. If you're fighting Empire Knights, you want these. Basically, you almost always want these because Skeletal Warriors aren't going to really kill that much. These guys aren't going to kill anything either, but they don't die and they stay alive long enough for your lords to do so. Now, translating into actual units that can kill things. Crypt Ghouls are... I've never found them great in Total Warhammer 2, and I'm still not overly impressed with them in Total Warhammer 3. They're a damage dealer unit. They're not good in straight-up melee combat. They're much better if you can flank with them. But you have better units for flanking in general. Your meat and potatoes unit, Grave Guards, they're solid. They take a long time to die, armored, shielded. They do have decent damage. They're great to stick in front of a line of a couple necromancers, and they just hang on for ages. Then you've got, again, more damage dealers. Your Karn Wraiths. They are ethereal, so they take less physical damage. Now, be aware they do get hit by magic attacks pretty easily. They should not be sent forward into direct melee combat with, in my opinion, most anything. Maybe basic Empire swordsmen. I have never found them to completely wreck an army on their own, but they are, again, another solid flanking unit, so long as the main enemy attention isn't directly on them. And then you've got Grave Guards without shields, but they do more damage. Plus, they're armor piercing, so if you're fighting like the dwarves, you're going to want these rather than these guys. Now, moving to the slightly more entertaining area, you've got your cav. Black Knights is your basic cav. I would not recommend using them. They're not amazingly effective. You're much better off pulling in direwolves, in my opinion, than Black Knights. Even though direwolves are not as good, they're less expensive. But then once you start getting upgraded Black Knights, you can get lances and barding, which becomes significantly better in actual combat, in my opinion. They're more armored, so they don't die. But what you really want is to get to Hex Wraiths, which again are ethereal. They cause terror, making enemy units run away rather than fighting sometimes. And they're just a really good flanking cav unit. But the best cav unit, I think, for the vampire counts is their Blood Knights. They are strong. They are hard to kill. They have the hunger, so they regenerate hit points. It basically means you don't have to... They're basically miniature lords on horseback. They're very strong. They can pretty much fight most cav in the game one-on-one, barring like Bretonians and high-level Empire Knights. They're really good. They kill lots of stuff. They almost are too strong for a flanking unit. They might be nerfed. But they're good at what they do, and they're great at charges and flanking. They're fast. They're powerful. Now, to slightly more monstrous ones. Vampire Bats, your base one. They actually have a place in your armies. They are good at flying over the enemies and distracting enemy archers or artillery from killing you at range. They will not hold up in melee combat at all, but if you want to overload an enemy with units, they will attack from above and can be good at that role. Plus, they can scare off the enemies with fear. They'll lower leadership, so you fly a couple of them over the enemy army. It's like casting a reduced leadership spell on it. They have a purpose. Then you got your dire wolves. I recommend having two of these in your army if you don't have high level cav, just for the flanking and chasing routing units and killing enemy archers. They'll do their job. They will not stand up to cav or infantry, really. Then you've got your Vargulfs, which are very powerful single entity units. You want these things. Send them into your line while the enemy is fighting your Graveguards, and they will kill lots of stuff, and they probably will not die. Their biggest weakness, if you can call it that, is they have lower leadership than some of your other units. So on their own, they will start to lose, but so long as you have zombies or skeletal warriors or ideally Graveguards around them, it will fight on until literally the battle's over. You've got Terrorgeists. You basically got flying death dragons. They're very solid. They do good damage. They cause terror. They do everything you would want a dragon unit to do, basically. Plus, they're a siege attacker. Same thing with Terrorgeists, so you can launch your battles instantly. It's worth mentioning that because it allows the vampires to take land really fast rather than having waiting a turn to siege. They are expensive, though, but they hit hard, and because you can keep them alive with spells, they prove to be a little bit more useful, in my opinion, than their average dragon-like creature. Then you've got your Crypt Horrors. They're good. I kind of skip them and go straight to Vargeists, which are flying and about as effective, if not more. They're flanking units. Basically, the vampires, your main infantry holds the line, then your specialized infantry or monsters or cav flanks. That's the strategy. You do have access now to Mournguls in Total Warhammer 3. This comes from the Vampire Coast. They're kind of on par with the Vargeist, but they're better. They don't fly, and they're a little bit better in melee combat. It's worth noting that the Vargeist and the Mournguls have the Hunger passive ability, so they do heal, which makes part of the reason they're so hard to kill, even though they both have reasonably low armor. And then you've got the various chariots the vampires have. Corpse Cart is your basic one. It kind of does what it should do. It helps your units in an area fight better. They lose less vigor. They're not really good in actual combat, but they're there. So take of it what you will. They do heal themselves, so they're less likely to die. But you want to get the higher ones. Once you get Balefire, you get more powerful ones that in an area gives flame resistant and boosts your units to have flaming and magical attacks. Really helpful, especially fighting demons or other undead units. Pretty solid. And then you get Unholy Lodestones. These ones have the regeneration in areas. They do not have the Balefire bonus of magic or fire attacks, so pick which one you need for who you're fighting, basically. And then you got your coach units, the Black Coach. This is a solid unit, actually. It runs around. It does damage. It's hard to kill. It has a passive ability if it gets more than 40 kills that make it do more damage. It reduces damage if it gets tons of kills. In general, it's a pretty strong unit. It does good charge damage, melee damage. It's kind of like a budget cav unit for flanking and stuff. Use it. But then you get Mortis Engine. Mortis Engines are kind of like an upgraded version of this to some degree. They're technically called chariots. This one, again, heals allies in the area. It also recharges your power faster. It also casts a spell automatically that does damage to enemies in range when they're fighting, which makes them quite useful to do damage because the vampires don't have tons of damage dealing units, more tanking. It also does wounds and stuff. They're solid units. Pick them once you can afford them. They're all high level, though. In order to get most of the good vampire units, you need to get to level 3 settlements, which has a very odd effect on gameplay, and I'm going to mention it. The vampire counts minor settlements are pretty useless. They're there to give you access to maybe like the skeleton graveguards and to generate revenue, but outside of that, all your power for the vampires is concentrated in capital settlements. Like Drakenhof, Templehof, all of those. Losing one of them hurts. So try to avoid losing them. Stick garrison buildings in them. You don't want to lose them. I will point out the fact that vampire garrisons are not great, but having the walls is very strong for the vampires because they don't have range units, but their walls do have range attacks. Plus, with the towers in Total Warhammer 3, they do have some range damage stuff. Just stick minor garrison in every one of your minor settlements, and you should be all set. Let's talk economy. So, the Vampire Count's economy got a heavy rework from Total Warhammer 2. They heavily reduced the high-level income the vampires get. I'm remembering from Total Warhammer 2 that the Vampire Crypts would give like 350 income. Vampire Counts technically have dark magic as their income, but it's just money. Gives them 50 now, which means, sadly, that your Vampire Counts capital settlements are not the sheer massive generators of wealth they used to be. They're still going to be worth having. Instead, the wealth has been shifted to a building that was pretty well useless in Total Warhammer 2, the Repression building. You would build them to get public order at a little bit of money, but they weren't valuable. They are valuable now. They cost 450 to build, and currently they give 250 gold. So they pay themselves back in 2 turns. So in your minor settlements, stick one in there. Within 3 turns, you're making money. Upgraded, they give 500 and they give control. So they are worth sticking in every single minor settlement you get. I wouldn't stick them in the major settlements. You want the higher level vampire buildings in those. But you throw a garrison building in a minor settlement, you throw one of these in there, and maybe you do a cemetery build or a binding circle building, or if they've got a unique resource, you build that. That's pretty what you'll do with them. If you're going the necromancers everywhere, super fast research strategy at level 20 necromancers, go up the boneyard. It'll grow your capital settlements to the levels to get better units faster. So rule of thumb for minor settlements, let's swap to one of those. Garrison building, once you can get it to level 3 when you can. It's actually probably not worth building a garrison building till your settlement's level 3, because level 2, the first level garrison is really weak. So start with either infrastructure or growth. Get those once you get to level 3, get the garrison, finish off repression, either finish off your boneyard or have a cemetery or a binding circle in there as well. That's pretty much what you want to do there. For the capital settlements income, the vampire counts get a half decent amount of money from their capital buildings. It's not great, but it is something. And as I said, because of the nerfs to the high level purple buildings, they don't generate enough money. Like the repayment time right now on this is like 90 turns or more. It's really quite bad. It's still worth building them for the other benefits of like hero units and necromancers and research rate stuff. But you no longer want to build them so that you have money. Instead, the capitals for the vampires are unit training centers to control your minor settlements where the money comes from, if that makes sense. You want your capital settlements throughout your empires to be unit production ones. You want to have access to Vargulfs. You want to have access to Graveguards. You want to have access to Hexwraiths and Banshees, vampires. Blood Knights is a big one. Terrorgeist is a big one. It is always worth putting a garrison building in a vampire capital settlement. Just do it. You don't want to lose them. They don't cost a massive amount to build. They make a huge difference to units. +6 leadership on vampire units with walls and towers. They are very good at defense, the vampires, with garrison buildings. For that, their garrisons kind of suck. So build them. You'll be happy with it. It's also important to note the forest line here. You need a capital settlement to get Vargulfs. Before that, you're stuck to Morngulls and Vargeasts, which aren't bad. So conceptually, remember vampire count settlements, capital settlements are for unit production, minor settlements are for income and growth. So you take the growth from the small settlements, channel it into your large settlements, then deploy units to defend the small settlement. It's kind of like a circle. Circle of life and death. There we go. Okay, let's talk technology. We're over here with Kemmler in Bretonia. I'm just using this because it's a level 1, turn 1 start. So the first thing to remember, obviously, is having the Necromancer's Steel technology to speed through these trees is a very good strategy. They are very useful to have. The only thing to realize is that there are certain technologies in the vampires you want to reach early on, and others you can delay. So I'm going to try and cover those. Obviously, adapt them to your playstyle. But in my opinion, the best one to start with is the Lamian Book of Blood, because it gives you a blood kiss, but that's not the big reason. The biggest reason is the 10 growth. Vampire counts want to get their capital settled, but it's to 4 and 5 super fast. Like, that is their goal. I mean, it's a goal of every faction, but the vampire counts truly shine early game. They kind of suck mid game, and then they're really solid late game when they get their monstrous units. So, start with the Lamian Book of Blood. The next one, Serve in Life and Death, is worth it because it gives you a plus 20% income to your repression buildings. And remember, those are from the economy section I just covered. They are your income building outside of fighting and raiding. They're your major source of income. So plus 20 on those, plus 20 on 500. It's another 100. It adds up very quickly. It's worth grabbing. Next one, Blood is Power, plus 25% income from your cities. Remember how I said the settlement buildings supply half decent income? This is worth it. Level 5 capital settlement will give an extra 100 resources. It's not amazing, but it's enough to upkeep another unit or two. Plus, you're going to have settlements, and it gives growth as a bonus. So between that, you get plus 25 growth. After that, this is where you can kind of start to diverge if you want to. I recommend getting Baleful Rituals just for the corruption spread. The vampire corruption is, I'm not going to go into it amazingly in depth, but you need it in your settlements because high levels of it give you public order and better units. Low levels cause revolt. And if they're very low levels, like enemies' lands, you take attrition marching through them. If they're high level, if you have a high level vampire corruption, they march into your lands. As long as they're not sieging, they take attrition. So additional vampire corruption will help, especially because you can get it earlier than a lot of factions can get anti-corruption buildings. If you're contesting provinces with them, like Kemmler is here with the dwarves and the greenskins up here, having the additional vampiric corruption will make those provinces less stable, will make your capital region more stable and easier to really develop. Plus, higher levels, better chance for units to heal and resurrect after a battle. The next one, this is purely your decision. But if you're playing as Vlad and Isabella, I would recommend doing this. I would recommend going for infiltrating the noble houses, which sends you through spread vampire covens. You're not going to have lots of allies for this alliance points to matter. As the vampires, pretty much everyone hates you, so your only real allies are going to be either the vampire coast or other vampire counts. Maybe you might get an alliance with Cathay or Kislev or something, but it's unlikely. If you're amazingly lucky, you get, as Vlad and Isabella, alliance with the Wargrove of Woe and get some Elven units and Elven alliances. But the plus 10 relations with other factions, it doesn't solve the aversions other factions have to vampires. It just makes them like you a little bit more, so they're less likely to attack you. It's not really powerful, but I figured it would be worth mentioning. After that, it depends where you're fighting and what you're doing. So If you're fighting, say, as Mannfred and you're in the desert where there's not a lot of corruption around, might be worth grabbing Necronomica for the reduced attrition, plus the chance that your units that are destroyed come back with more health points. Can help, but I really do recommend going down the Book of Arcane. Reduced upkeep for zombie units just allows you to use more of them as bodies on the battlefield. But the +5 leadership to zombies, skeletons, and skeletal spearmen is very good early on because you're going to be using a lot of them. So snagging that is pretty powerful. And then continuing down this tree, the Dead Rise again, another 15% chance for destroyed units to come back after battles. Really good. The bonus speed to zombies, less useful. Risen Standard Bearers, this is a change. A lot of this tech has changed since Total Warhammer 2. +5 melee defense for your skeletons and zombie warriors makes them a lot stronger. If we were to look at a default skeletal unit, it's got 22 melee defense, so +5 is almost a 1/4 increase in defense. Really good. Now, if you're using zombies, you could go down here, which makes your zombies less likely to die, have more hit points, allow you to heal them for more, give you more of them to raise at some time, allow you to deploy them over the map. I wouldn't recommend this for anyone other than Ghorst. Ghorst, we'll talk about Ghorst later, but he's kind of the zombie user of the vampire counts. Going over here, Bond of Bones, great tech, especially for defense, allows you to raise skeletal warriors for cheaper. A natural strength makes your skeletal warriors and spearmen do more damage. I would get this. Don't expect it to make a huge difference, but every little bit of damage on a unit that doesn't do much damage helps. Grave Gift makes their upkeep cheaper and gives them more armor. I would actually take this above a natural strength. It's just really useful. This will start to allow you to have something similar to the free skeletal warrior armies from Total Warhammer 2. It won't solve the problem, but it does help. And finally, Defilers of Ancient Barrows allows you to have more skeletal warriors and skeletal spearmen units in your raised dead pools, and it gives perfect vigor so they don't get tired. I honestly would have thought all vampire units didn't get tired, considering they're mostly undead, but whatever. Risen Champions is really worth taking. Boost the combat strength. Again, if we look at your average skeletal warrior unit, it has 18 attack +4. It's not quite a 1/4 increase, more like a 1/5 increase. But it, again, makes a unit that couldn't fight in melee a little bit better at fighting in melee early game. It's worth it. And then over here, weapon strength for Graveguards and Black Knights, and then cheaper Graveguards and Black Knights. It makes Graveguards, which is going to be your main line infantry for a lot of the game, high level ones, cheaper and has more armor. It's worth it. After that, if you are using monsters, go down this tree. If you're using fell bats, dire wolves, some of the Bloodline Lords have bonuses to it. I tend not to use the bats and the wolves past the early game just because they don't hold up. But this makes them hold up a little longer. Plus, it does boost your Terrorgeist and Varghese units. It's a long commitment to get to bonuses for actually good units, whereas the other trees, you get the bonuses earlier on. The Libra Necronomica, probably after you've gotten most of the way through this Book of Arcane tree, it's worth going down this tree. If you're using Crypt Ghouls and Crypt Horrors, you want to take it earlier, but this boosts some of your stronger units, Cairn Wraiths, Morghuls, Hex Wraiths, cheaper, makes them do more damage, etc. It's worth noting that this one, +10 campaign movements, the vampire counts, oddly enough, cover distance on the map really fast. They tend to have very fast moving armies, and this just really helps with that. This one, if you're using Crypt Ghouls and Crypt Horrors, makes them passively heal and makes them so much more useful in combat. Problem is they still can't kill tons of stuff. This boosts your Cairn Wraiths, Morghuls, Hex Wraiths, worth grabbing. This one, and this is a unique thing for Total Warhammer 3, you get barriers, similar to what the Tzeentchian factions have. The barrier has to go away first before they start taking damage. I haven't fully tested this one to see if they regenerate at a good rate, but I imagine it regenerates to some degree. And then over here, siege bonuses. If you're under attack or you're sieging a lot of cities, great bonus for the extra leadership. Plus missile resistance for a nation that has no missile units, really solid. And then finally, enshrine ancient lords cheaper, raise dead, reduced casualties for non-vampire corrupted lands attrition. You stack it with this, you're taking only 50%. It's really useful, especially if you're invading strongholds where they have, where they have lots of not they don't have a lot of corrupt vampiric corruption, and 10% for your armies to come back is really good. If you are playing Isabella von Karstein, you might consider earlier going down Puppet Master. And I'll explain why she plays very differently than Vlad. But suffice to say, if you're going to be using banshees, necromancers, or even vampires as heroes on the map rather than units in your army, disrupt enemy operations, assassinate, get blood kisses, steal tech, 33% cheaper is really good. Plus, it makes the vampire in your army stronger as well. These last ones here are late game technologies, or high level building technologies, I should say, like level 4 or 5. This one makes the 50 income you get from Vengeful Spirit go to 100. Still not that good, but it boosts the recruit strength for White Kings. I haven't mentioned them because, unlike Banshees, Necromancers, or Vampires, they are a purely melee hero unit. They're worth having. Think like a really strong skeleton unit. That's kind of what they are. They're not amazingly powerful. This one boosts Blood Knights, but you have to get to Blood Knights, which are a level, I think, 5 building, settlement building. This one boosts the 50 income from those buildings to 100. I assume the economy of the vampire count is going to change, in which case this will become more useful. Over here, though, again, another 100. 50 to 100 income is really not worth it. Bonuses to the Black Coach, they're not really. Some of these late game ones aren't great. Puppet Master's the best. And then after that, just finish off everything. You should be able to finish it off within like 150 turns, unlike most factions, especially if you boost the research rate. So let's talk about starting locations and various lords associated with the vampire accounts. We'll just stay with Kemmler here because it's where we were. So Kemmler starts, you can't really see it. He starts in the mountains outside of the Bretonnian area. Carcerone's there, Marienburg's there. The capital of the empire is right there. He starts in the Blackstone Post, which has the ability for you to recruit necromancers at the beginning of the game, which is very useful because you can speed up the research. This guy is kind of the research-focused lord of the vampire counts, if that makes any sense. Plus, this building can be upgraded to just get you mortis engines without having to go down build a separate building to get them. Gives you a garrison of Carnrace, which makes this settlement rather hard to take early game. And I recommend the first turn you throw walls down in it. It won't help your income, and it won't allow you to recruit any more units, but you're going to be fighting mainly Bretonnians who don't have knights yet, so you can get by with skeletal spearmen and other raised dead ones. You just don't want to lose Blackstone Post to a sneak attack from the dwarves, who, by the way, can reach your settlement in one turn. You are not going to be able to kill this dwarf faction for a fair amount of time. The odds are they will die to someone else rather than you. Anything dwarves are probably the dwarves, maybe the lizardmen, or maybe chaos are like the anti-vampire account factions because they have high level armored infantry that specializes in melee fighting. Plus the dwarves will destroy you with artillery and range attacks, but you're not going to be able to take that dwarf settlement or even this greenskin settlement for a while. This is a weird settlement weird province because 2 of the provinces are here and the next one is up here, which is just strange. Don't expect to unite the capital region in your first 30 turns unless you really go for it, and even then trying to defend it is a pain. Kemmler actually starts right here on the map if you look where my cursor is. And the first thing you want to do with him is literally go into Raise Dead, raise as much undead as you can, march over and take Gisoruk through Gisora. I have no idea. Let's just be honest. Take this settlement from Artois, build up, take his capital there, and then make this area your economic and area you build up before Blackstone Post, which just kind of sits there for a good portion of the game. It won't get taken, which is good because if you start losing ground in Bretonia, you can retreat back to there. It's very tricky to take as a settlement, especially if you get it to level 3 with a garrison. It's really strong. Interesting note, this is Castle Drakenfell. If you played or seen me play Vermintide, you'll know that Castle Drakenfels is an actual location at game. Just a cool side fact. Um, take over this land. There is Musilion over here, which is another vampire faction. You ideally don't want to let them die. You want to either ally or confederate them, or vassalize them if you can. They will prove to be not that great of an ally, but if you confederate them, you get their Red Duke legendary lord, and he's worth having. Plus, they have a pretty good settlement on the coast, and any more vampire land you can get is better. Making them a vassal would be ideal, but it's kind of tricky to pull off before they die. Afterwards, you have a choice where to go. You could push north and try and take out Luan Liangke. He's a little bit harder to take out, I find, than in Total Warhammer 2, since he's a little less reckless. Like, he doesn't seem to just charge out and die up in Norska all the time. So what I would recommend is you instead go south, take Castle Baston, Montfort. If you can, try and grab the forts in the passes between you and the Empire. Just try not to pick a fight with the Reichland if you can help it, because they will keep coming after you. And honestly, dealing with Franz and his issues of killing everything around him is just a pain. You can pretty easily subdue Bretonia in the first 40, 50 turns just using skeletal warriors and your starting armies, because the Bretonians won't have good cav. Up until then, what cav they do have will die to your skeletal warriors, so you'll mainly be fighting a couple lords with a bunch of peasants. Luan is a little bit different, but that is something you will excel at fighting. So conquer Artois, build up, get a second army, use those 2 armies to wipe out individual Bretonian factions. Ideally, try and get their capital settlement first, because if you do, their strength drops significantly when they have only minor settlements. Bretonian, kind of like the vampires, their major settlements are way more valuable than their minor ones. And once you take this castle, or even Artois, throw down a and I didn't talk about this, a Balefire Brazier, which spreads vampiric corruption. At high levels, it spreads it to nearby provinces. You just want to corrupt as much of Bretonia as you can so that you can, first off, conquer it, but also, second of all, that it makes it harder for the Bretonians to march out and attack you. And over time, you'll just wear them down. You can even throw in an Awakened Battlefield, which reduces their movement and increases the attrition they take. Plus, it also helps with Raised Dead. I would recommend throwing down an Awakened Battlefield on your coastal provinces once you get them, because I've noticed a lot of the invasions of Bretonia come by sea now, and having increased attrition when armies land on your coast, because they have to take a turn to land usually before they can attack, it really can weaken them so that you can raise an army. Plus, the cheaper Raised Dead cost that you get from it allows you to just spawn a Vampire Lord, raise an army, march, wipe them out, disband the army in like 1 turn. It's nuts. Plus, it gives increased garrison. Later on, you might run across the Skaven to the south. This guy in Skavenblight, whose name I'm blanking on right now, tends to come after you. Eventually, he tends to wipe out southern Bretonia and sometimes even the Wood Elves. Throwing down one of these to prevent Skaven cities, increases control, reduce plagues, very useful. So that is kind of his starting location. So let's talk about Kemmler specifically. Kemmler has bonus relationships with Chaos, Beastmen, and Norska. They're less likely to attack you. Necromancers build up. Kemmler, due to his lore in Warhammer, which I don't fully understand, but I know a little bit about, he doesn't take attrition from Chaos Waste or Undivided, which means he actually is one of the few factions that doesn't tend to get killed by Chaos if they invade. Plus, Raising Dead for him is cheaper. So you stack it with the other tech abilities, he can get some dirt cheap units. In fact, he can get basically free Skeletal Warriors. As a Lord, he has... as a Lord, his starting... where is it? His starting trait is Wanderer. He can replenish in foreign territories, which is really nice. Basically, you could even just fortify your capital region, go off and conquer another part of the world pretty much better than anybody else. The fact you can replenish in an enemy territory means you can just keep attacking and attacking and attacking without really having to wait turn after turn to heal in your own lands. His Lord of Undeath ability is quite interesting because it allows him to summon Krell. Krell has had some changes. Krell no longer degrades. It's like an ancient White King. It's a very strong melee unit. In fact, his tree, after he hits rank 12, has a lot to do about working with White Kings and making them stronger and stuff. It is important to note he does have Lord of the Scourge here, and he has Thrallmaster. Snag these two when you can get them. The fact that your units are less likely to be permanently dead after battles, cheaper to raise, cheaper to recruit, and in this case, you can use zombies. It's all really good stuff. Then I recommend going down Undying Horde. Keep the regeneration going. You want to have your army back to full in 2 turns. It'll allow taking Bretonnia much faster. He doesn't need to go down Darkling Skies as much. Children of the Night, not as used. It's worth taking, not as powerful. He doesn't really have a lot of people he needs to worry about ambushing. Lightning Strike, fully upgraded, not totally needed. Necrarch for him, probably actually more useful to get your settlements to level 5 faster. Uncanny Presence over here. Reduced upkeep, increased winds of magic, always a good thing for vampires. And he is a good mage user. I find I don't upgrade his tree of casting that much. Instead, I focus on his lord abilities like moving faster, boosting Krell, and then actually boosting your units. I would much rather just summon a Necromancer unit and stick it in his army, and then have that level up the spells more. If you stick a Necromancer hero in his army, like this dude here, you want to do the replenish troops, you can get some insane regen on this guy. Like, it's really quite powerful. After you've conquered Bretonnia, you've got a couple options. I really wouldn't recommend invading the Wood Elves just because of how annoying Athel Loren is, but you might have to. If you do, be aware you're going to need like 3 or 4 armies to take a vampire settlement due to attrition and how strong their settlements are. Be a little bit wary of Grom de Ponch up here. Greenskins are a little bit stronger than the Bretonians you'll be facing. And then, of course, you got Beastmen and Skaven down here. I recommend take Bretonnia, fortify your pathways, maybe kill the Wood Elves, and then think of expanding from there. Be aware the High Elves are really close to you now, and they don't tend to like vampires. They tend to get killed, though, so just be aware of that. Anyway, that's Kemmler. Let's jump over to... we'll see. Okay, everybody, here we are with Mannfred. So previously, Total Warhammer 2, Mannfred started in the same location that Vlad and Isabella start now. I agree immensely with the moving of at least 1 vampire, in this case 2 vampire lords, out of the Bretonnian Empire area. So they have sent him, compared to Vlad and Isabella, who are up here, they have sent him all the way down into the deserts of Araby. I can't remember. This is both good and bad. First off, it's bad in the sense that you are in an area where you don't have any particularly strong offensive vampire associated populace to begin with. On the other hand, it does allow you to fight other enemies other than the Empire, Bretonnia, and dwarves. Then you'll be fighting lizardmen, Tomb King, and dwarves. Basically, everybody kind of ends up fighting dwarves, don't they? Anyway, you start in Kar Sabar here. It is worth immediately, in my opinion, building the city of bronze. Reason is money matters a lot, and this is 300 a turn, and it reduces recruitment cost. Just you can build it turn one, and then forget about it. I would also probably recommend upgrading your charnel pit to a boneyard to getting so you can get necromancers. Rely on the raised dead for a while. It's much better than it was. You don't really have to build buildings for a little while. Um, Once you get this upgraded to level 3, throw a garrison in it, just because you've got enemies that could attack you from all directions. This is a very hard to defend location. You start at war with a Tomb King over here. In fact, you'll start out with an initial battle army, army to battle, I should say. Battle armies, whatever. Raise undead prior to the battle, raise more undead after the battle, heal up, maybe train a couple units, then attack. These guys have 2 settlements here, and then they have an additional one over here. You cannot vassalize them, unfortunately. It'd be kind of cool if vampires could have Tomb Kings. Bahargar is very important to your economy because it has gemstones, and gemstones level 1 is like 300 income a turn. Stacking that with Kasabars, you'll get 600 per turn in income pretty quickly. You're going to need it. It is worth pointing out that I think it's Volkmar, the Grim or whatever. One of the Empire Lords is right here. He's not particularly hard to kill. Honestly, I kind of question the decision of putting Mannfred going this direction and him going this direction because you run into conflict early when the vampire counts are at their strongest. He's probably one that's worth taking out reasonably quickly. And then you can kind of determine if you want to go south. Tic-Tac-Toe is over here, so Lizardmen. Orion's Camp, you can actually get a non-aggression pact with them pretty easily, and they're kind of just isolationists. They probably won't attack you. If they do, unlike some of the other war settlements, you can march into their capital and take them out in like 1 turn. If you're going to take them out early. Over here, you've got Ironbrow with a gold mine. It's worth taking out early if you can, especially before he might get taken out by somebody from over here. Get the gold mine with your starting area. You've got the potential to build up. It is important to note that you do actually have vampires to your north. You have the Necroarch Brotherhood. You can probably non-aggression pact, trade with them. Eventually, you might be able to make them your vassal or at least your ally. They're not going to be particularly helpful, but they prevent people from the north attacking you for a while. At some point, you either want to take them out, make them your vassal, or you'll have to reconquer their land when Kemmler kills you. You can get Kemmler's capital, but it's tricky. Basically, you want to go for sources of income for this guy. And it's kind of a strange thing to think, but getting money should be almost more of a priority at the beginning than focus on trying to build up a centralized economy or an army. Just because you've got so many enemies from so many different directions, it can easily become a dog pile as this faction. I've played to like turn 80 as this guy, and it's just almost constant warfare. The lizardmen, the dwarves, the humans, they all want your land, and they all kind of hate you. So expand selectively, play defensively. Your kind of mission is the Books of Nagash. It's worth getting them if you can. They don't really start particularly close to you. This is the closest one. This one's over here, but it's across a mountain range, so it'll take longer to get there than you'd expect. And outside of that, they're around the world. You could kind of play the adventure game, just send Mannfred out to find them. But he does take attrition, so it's a long-term goal. It is worth to note that if you can get to Castle Drakenhof, you can double these bonuses. And some of them are reasonably substantial. At some point, you want to get Drakenhof back under your control. At which point, probably they conquered half of the world, so you're rather powerful anyway. Don't expect many allies. Expect to have lots of enemies. Focus on getting an income. Definitely build garrisons and corruption spreading build. Anyway, that is Mannfred. Sorry, that's not entirely it. Mannfred is a spellcaster more than a melee fighter, so you can kind of go down either the vampire ones or go down the spirit damage tree here. In my opinion, getting Purple Son of Xerxes is going to help a lot early on, especially if you're on a zombie dragon fighting the Tomb Kings, because it can wipe out whole units of Tomb Kings. Um, Definitely Restless Undead, Undying Chord, probably Children of the Night, Darkling Skies, even too. You might spend a lot of time in the blue tree early on as Mannfred. He can become a good melee fighter. I would focus a little bit more on making him a spellcaster than fighting. Instead, take his starting Tomb King here, Kevin, at least in my game, and make him a melee fighter for you. Okay, time to talk about the vampire lord that's probably changed the most from Total Warhammer 2 to 3, Helman Ghorst. So Helman Ghorst has headed east. He is right on the border with Cathay. He starts, oddly enough, in one of the the Wood Elves' magical forests, which of course means the Wood Elves kind of want it back, but that's a story for a different time. It does mean, and I will point this out now, because it is in a Wood Elf, Ogre, or Norscan homeland, you do not have walls on your capital. You can't even build a garrison building. The best you can get is an awakened battlefield. So just be aware. Your capital is probably the most vulnerable vampire capital of all of them. Thankfully, you're kind of in an area where it's unlikely to get attacked. Just be aware you need an army to defend it if anything gets near it, and you're probably better off taking something like Flayed Rock here, which is right nearby, and making that your capital instead. Somewhere over here. You start at war with Skaven nearby. It's worth marching up, taking out the Skaven army that starts here, building up, and continuing. Once you're there, you got a bit of a choice. You could go after Cathay with all the problems that can arise. You could try and fight your way through the ogres. Be aware that the ogres are significantly better at melee fighting than your zombie and skeleton warriors. Or you could focus on wiping out the lizardmen and Skaven to your immediate west. I recommend Skaven and lizardmen if you can help it. And then build up before challenging the ogres or even Cathay. Cathay actually doesn't hate you that much. I haven't met them in this. This is just turn 1. You can get a non-aggression pact with them on turn 2. It's worth getting. Then you can just sit back, trade with them, slowly corrupt them if you want. The Eastern Province guy doesn't, I can't remember what he is, Eastern or Western. Anyway, the male dragon Cathay guy, he tends to leave you alone if you don't bother him. And you just want to build up. Ghorst is interesting. He is all about the zombies, which has positive and negatives to it. First off, he can recruit zombies, basically as many zombies as he wants. They are cheap, they are expendable, they do poison damage, which is a bit interesting. They replenish quickly, and he's got the ability to his corpse cart and mortis engines can raise more zombies. Zombies, if you look at them, the zombie units have 5 melee attack and 6 melee defense. A skeleton warrior has 18 and 22. Zombies are meat shields. That is pretty much their sole purpose of existing in the Vampire Counts roster. He changes it a bit. So, first off, his Haunted Forest starting province gives recruit ranks to zombies and crypt ghouls. At the high levels, you can get level 6 zombies just by creating them. Level 6 units, it's nice. The sad fact is they kind of suck still, even at high levels. But he's got other abilities to help. So, first off, he has a Neophyte. He's immune to Plague Attrition, which is good if he fights Nurgles. He's immune to contact effects, so his army doesn't have issues with, like, poison. And his zombies have 30 armor for some reason. Regardless, it makes them a lot harder to kill, and he's going to have a lot of them. However, We will point out he has Thrallmaster and Lord of the Scourge, similar to similar to Kemmler, um, which of course helps him with zombies, makes them much cheaper, replenish more, you can heal more. Thrallmaster, cheaper to raise. He's kind of about just the fantasy of huge hordes of zombies trying to conquer stuff. I haven't found him to be super, super, super strong in my playthrough so far, but I haven't gotten super far into him just because he has all zombies, and honestly, not biggest fan of zombies. Move far, his zombies get plus melee attack 12 when he gets to, what is this, probably level 13. This makes his zombies on par with skeletal warriors, so you can start to see how he becomes useful. You just have to get to this level. Then you can get ward save. Zombies take less damage. Uncanny resilience. Zombies can heal 500 times more. It's pretty nuts. And then Ravenous Dead. Ravenous Dead for all zombies. Now your zombies heal while fighting. They're on par with skeletal warriors, if not better at this point. They're cheaper. You get a lot of them. They also have plus 50 weapon strength, but the problem is their weapon strength is 18, but it makes them 27, which is better than skeletal warriors. So at some point, your zombies become skeletal warriors, which is kind of awesome. Only downside I see offhand is that they're still zombies. It's worth getting Unliving Host early if you're going to go the zombie route. Get it after Undying Horde, and probably, just get it after Undying Horde. He's not the type of person who needs Children of the Night. Darkling Skies is nice. If you're worried about fighting Cathay, Ambush Chance is nice. After that, get this line, upgrade all his kind of passive things, like Master of the Dead, regeneration in an area. He gets on his cart. Think about it. You're going to have cheap, virtually free zombie units that are better than skeletal warriors. That's kind of his fantasy. Snag Dark Pack for the additional leadership while attacking. That should be done on all vampires, but for him, it helps with the zombies. And honestly, build up. Getting Legions of the Undead is very important for him because he can get like level 6 or level 7 zombies just in his capital, plus 5 attack, plus 12 weapon strength, plus magic resist. Totally worth it for him. 100% worth it. And then if you can get stuff like Undead Resurgent and stuff where it boosts leadership and melee defense, you'll basically have a good army. The downside is it's still only a good army. It's not a great army, but that's where you bring monsters to help. So recommendations, start off, get Knobbly Gorge here, get Scrap Towers, which is again is Skaven. Head over to Flay Rock if you can. Try and avoid annoying Cathay. Maybe even try and being nice to the ogres, because you can get a non-aggression pact with them. It'll cost you some of your starting money, but then again, your armies are rather cheap if you're using zombies. The Lizardmen Isles over here are worth subduing if you can snag them. They've got some, unique locations. They've got some resources. They tend not to be particularly invaded. And from there, this is actually a really good area to build up because you got 3 settlements you can put growth buildings in to build up Dread Rock to level 4 or 5 faster. Just keep an eye on the fact that you do have a Wood Elf settlement here that doesn't have walls. Okay, on to the final lords. So before we load into the map, which you've kind of already seen earlier, it's worth talking about the difference between Vlad and Isabella. If you pick Vlad, Isabella becomes a legendary hero. If you hit Isabella, Vlad becomes a legendary hero. You want to put them in the same army because they get bonuses for healing when in the same area. What's different is how they play. Vlad is very much more of an offensive. He gets siege attacker, meaning he can take settlements. He gets a movement range on all his armies. He gets vanguard deployment to his unit. He is all about expanding fast, taking settlements, ambushes, flanking, just pure butchery. Isabella is a little bit more cerebral, I'd say. She is much more into vampires. Having vampires in your army. She starts off with a +3 capacity for vampires, and both she and Vlad have a unique building. We'll talk about it in a minute. Basically, you can have like 7 vampire heroes in her army by like turn 10. It's nuts. And she gets a bonus to attack and defense, meaning she can have a very strong vampire army backed up by trash units very quickly. She also has another ability, which we can look at once we're into it, but basically it makes heroes in her area, their hero actions cheaper with a higher success chance. This is great, especially if you use necromancers or vampires to level them up fast, get a lot of research, and generally play almost more of an espionage game than Vlad, who's kind of a blunt force. So Isabella is kind of smart, Vlad is strong. Let's jump into it with Vlad. Okay, so we're here as Vlad. So obviously, Isabella starts as a legendary hero for you. We'll just glance at her. She has Queen Bee. This is really good, especially if you send her out and use the heroes to succeed and stuff. I mentioned it already. I'll mention it again. She's really good at leveling them up. She's got this unique tree here, which boosts monsters, lets them regenerate, do more damage, allows her to get more vampires, makes them cheaper to use her as a vampire. She can assassinate, which means as Vlad, it might not be worth sticking her in an army. It might be worth sending her out to start getting you blood kisses. It's kind of up to you. Vlad, on the other hand, has slightly less interesting abilities. And then she just basically buffs your army's monster units. She's good at fighting. She's got a unique item, a unique ability, the Blood Chalice of Bathory. This is very important to use in combat because it heals your lords and heroes around them. Or it targets one. You use it on Vlad, you send Vlad in, Vlad kills things, she heals him. Pretty much. Now, Vlad, on the other hand, he can be a spellcaster. I tend to make him just a pure melee fighter, use Isabella as a spellcaster, or the fact that you have other vampires, use them to cast spells. He's he's a really solid legendary lord. He's already got good combat stats. You can buff them even higher. He has the ability to move super fast. All his armies move fast. He moves faster. You take the vampire ones, he can zoom around the map like he's on a motorbike or something. He also has a passive that trains the units in his armies really fast, so his army tends to get high level experience pretty fast. He also weakens enemies around them, makes them harder for them to attack or damage him or his allies. He can also directly target a lord to make them almost useless in combat, and then he can kill them. He also gets a plus 40 relations with Empire. I was talking earlier about technologies and bloodlines, about how you can get like a plus 30 relations with all nearby factions through a bloodline, and then plus 10 to all factions nearby through a tech. Stacking that with Vlad, you can have plus 80 relations with the Empire, which pretty much totally negates their aversion to you, which can allow you to not get dogpiled on by the Empire. They tend to hate you early on, but this can allow you to become not friends with them, but at least less hostile, so you could go after the dwarves or expand in another direction. He also has the ability to just boost all damage in his army, which, considering the vampires have low damage, is very useful. My advice, same as the other lords, Restless Dead, Undying Horde. He is the exception of the lords here, Isabella, that you probably want to get Lightning Strike. You're probably going to be fighting several armies at different times of the Empire or other factions. Having the ability to do Lightning Strikes makes it a lot easier to defend against multiple armies. It is very possible that you could get piled on by the Empire or the dwarves. So let's talk about his location. First off, and I really am happy about it, the difference between Total Warhammer 2 to 3 is Swartzhaven has moved into the Drakenhof province and Waldenhorf has moved into the Tempelhof province. That means the province is here and here rather than here and here. It's purely just a matter of relocating the provinces, but it makes it much nicer. Also, another difference, Vlad and Isabella have Drakenhof rather than Mannfred in this game. Drakenhof is going to be your greatest settlement pretty much of all time. It has a gold mine. It will make you 600 gold a turn, fully upgraded, and you want to do the upgrades as soon as possible. Level it up. Once you get to the next level, immediately build a garrison building in it. That should be your second thing you build after the gold mine and leveling up. build a garrison. It does not have the bonus super garrison that it did in Total Warhammer 2, which means these dwarves right here can march in and take it. I had it happen to me. I restarted my campaign. Put the garrison building there to make it a lot safer. Now, in my 4 or 5 test runs as these guys, because these are the kind of basic vampire experience, you've got about 10 turns to build a little empire before people start attacking you. You start at non-aggression pacts with some of the empire. They will break them, but then they will wait a couple turns to actually attack you. So your first goal should be dealing with Templehof. Build up your army. Raise what dead you can afford. Take Eschen. Next turn, unless this army for some reason marches out to fight you, take Waldenhof. Zelig here may take Eschen, at which point you can then go kill him, snag a Blood Kiss, and then march on Templehof, obviously rebuilding your army. Once you take Templehof, you've got a choice. Actually, prior to taking Templehof, you got a choice. You could take Vogt Oberstyre and then come back to take Templehof, and then vassalize him in Templehof so his armies will be useful. Or you take Templehof and then vassalize him in Fort Oberstyre. You want to vassalize them. I can hardly say this enough. You want to vassalize them. First off, it gets you a Blood Kiss. You've already beat Zelig once in battle, at least. That will get you 3 and will allow you to get a Bloodline, which is very fast to start with 1. Or you do the Lamia Book of Blood and get a Blood Kiss as well. So then you'd have 4, and then you're only 2 away. You can assassinate, kill other lords to get the bloodlines faster. The downside of leaving Templehof in charge of Templehof is you don't have a second level capital building, a second capital settlement. So you're not going to be able to build it up as much as you could if you own. You won't be able to get all the high level military buildings just in Drakenhof. You'll get pretty close though. Templehof, Drakenhof is good. You can defend Templehof much better than the AI can. The AI, if they have just Fort Oberstyre or even Waldenhof, if you want to leave them with that, they will probably die from that. So I recommend if you fight the dwarves, you ask them a settlement like Oakenhammer or something to keep them alive. They will, even with 1 settlement, they'll probably have 2 full armies of skeletal warriors. They will not win any battles. They're not really meant to win any battles. What they will do is they will kill off any small marauding armies that sneak into your vampire lands and cause trouble. They also tend to spawn a hero or 2 and go nuts assassinating people, in my experience, or causing havoc with lords and stuff. Plus, having a vampire that you can trade with gets you more money, which is always good. After you subdued your capital area, which should take you 4 to 5 to 6 turns, I don't recommend expanding anywhere else. Wait till around 10 to maybe 15 turns. Build up, get your economy rolling, repair any relationship with Templehof. Try to get a non-aggression pact with the dwarves or Greenskin. Kislev up here, I was able to ally Kislev and non-aggression pact them like turn 2. They don't, for some reason, hate you. They don't have an aversion. Might change in future patches. It's worth it. Keep an eye out also for Cathay's caravans that tend to come up through here. You can usually get a trading agreement with Cathay and sometimes even a defensive alliance, which is really nice because the vampires don't tend to have many trading partners, and the income, you have some pretty good resources. You get wine, you get wood, you get masters doesn't count. You get gold. If you take out the dwarves here, you get iron. You can get some pretty nice resources early on. Now, in terms of expanding, it depends. It depends on 2 things. 1, do the dwarves attack you before the Empire? Or 2, do the dwarves attack you at all? The Empire is pretty much guaranteed to attack you. If the Empire attacks you, you want to make sure that, first off, Drakenhof has a garrison in it. Probably Waldenhorf, Eschen, and Schwarzhaven should also have garrison buildings at them and should be getting close to level 3 around turn 15 or 16, depending on if you build growth buildings. If you do, then you're good. The dwarves, if they attack you, you can march from Drakenhof to Oakenhammer or Zufbar in 1 turn. The problem is Karag Dromar. If you are in Schwarzhaven, you can't get there in 1 turn. So if the dwarves attack, I would honestly take out Oakenhammer and then march for Karag Dromar. You'll lose Oakenhammer to Zufbar, but sometimes Zufbar's army will stay there, and then you can ambush it on the way back. Regardless, your goal, if you fight Zufbar, is to take Zufbar. It's a capital settlement. You take it, you build it up. You get a non-aggression pact with these guys. Otherwise, you might even invade them and take them out as well. Having two capital settlements right next to each other is quite nice. You can fortify this one. It's up to you. It is unpleasant climate, so it's not great land for you, but I have yet to find the dwarves not attacking. Alright, Kadrim up here, the Slayer King, tends to be a little bit annoying. He'll keep attacking Waldenhof. Get a garrison building in it, put it to a level 3 garrison. Honestly, I just parked a vampire hero there with like 6 skeletal warriors, and he just kept attacking and dying. And I put her in ambush outside, ambushed him, killed him, rinse and repeat. It was good money, good XP. Taking Karak Kadrim is worth it if you can pull it off. Then you can take out this guy and control this whole mountain area. That could put you into other problems. So consider it. The downside, another thing that's unusual is the greenskins up here. In Total Warhammer 2, they were friends of the vampires. Total Warhammer 3, they're not right now. Might change. They tend to attack you. They're just as easy. Waldenhof here with a garrison, everybody attacks it. It's like they're focused on it. Wargrove of Woe is over here. They tend to kill off the Empire factions and then fight Kislev. You can usually get a non-aggression pact or even a trade agreement with them. If you're lucky, you could even pull off a defensive alliance with them. In general, I wouldn't mess with the Wargrove. They don't really come after you. They don't have a reason to fight your lands. They serve as a pretty nice buffer to this area, which means your expansion route tends to go west or into the dwarves. If you go west, the moot here is kind of a trap. In my opinion, it's a trap. It's kind of where the halflings live in this world. You can take it. It's a single province settlement. It can only be upgraded to level 3, though, so you can't even get a high-level capital settlement there. The downside is taking it is hard to control, and factions will try and retake it from you. I find it actually better to march past this and take out Sterling's capital and then come back, because this can't be defended at all. Bathlasar Gelt over here tends to declare war on you. He's not that hard to kill. The danger is once you push past that, you start running across Franz, but it's very easy to subdue this area. There are dwarves here. You can get a non-aggression pact, good. Otherwise, you might have to kill them. You want to get the Empire Fort here, and then you'll pretty much fortified and control the southern border. Stick garrison buildings everywhere. People like to invade across this and through this pass. And then it comes down to grinding your way through the Empire if you're at war with them. If you're not, you probably should push east, is my guess, into this area over here where you can win these fights, even though it's an unpleasant climate. Or you could have fun and go south and push into southern realms, Talea, and run across the greenskins and dwarves. Kind of up to you. This is probably the most basic vampire experience. However, if you're a new player, I would go play as Kemmler in Bretonnia. It's a much easier faction. And I think that is it. After an hour and a half, this has been a hopefully very complete look at the vampire accounts in Total Warhammer, the Immortal Empires, currently beta, hopefully not. If they change it drastically, I'll redo the video. Thank you guys all for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did watch this far, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. Please do check out the other videos. I'm going to do every faction in the game eventually, if it kills me in doing so. See you guys all another time. Bye for now.